The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar for the Executive Training Program on how to prepare to do business in Japan and South Korea through EU funding. My name is Paul Davis, and I work for the ETP Central Management Unit in Belgium. And today we'll also be joined on the webinar by Professor Pak, he's ET Academic Coordinator at Yonsei University in Korea, and by Zsolt Verdede, who is an alumnus of the program. He participated in the ETP program to Korea in 2012 and 2013. First of all, we'll just start off with some housekeeping rules. So all of the participants are currently on mute, apart from me as the presenter. And we do this to avoid any interference or feedback during the webinar. However, you have on the side of your screen a little box in which you can communicate with us by typing in your questions or any comments or queries. So should you have any technical issues, if you're not able to hear us, please don't hesitate to let us know via the screen. We will try to deal with that for you. Also, please use this screen for any questions during the question and answer session at the end, or indeed throughout the presentation. So today's agenda, we'll start with a short welcome and presentation by me, covering what is the ETP program, why are Japan and South Korea of particular interest, and then we'll explain briefly how to apply for the next round of the program if you are interested to do so. Afterwards, there'll be a presentation by Professor Pak on the ETP's immersion module, which is actually currently taking place for this cycle in both Korea and Japan, and a little bit more generally on the business opportunities for European companies and executives in South Korea. We'll then hear from Zsolt on his experience of participating in ETP Korea, and he'll be able to give some hints and tips on how to apply and how to make the best of the participation. So, first of all, what is the Executive Training Program? Well, it's an EU-funded program. It's funded by the European Commission, and it targets, on one hand, European companies, but also their managers, so their executives. It helps the companies to develop their business activities in Japan and Korea, and it helps the executives and managers to develop and further their career with these markets. ETP is designed to help EU companies understand what are quite different economies, languages, and business cultures in Japan and Korea. It's aimed to help the executives there succeed in these different markets. How does it do this? Well, it's run by a proven formula, something which has been going in Japan for 35 years, since 1979, and in Korea for the last 11 years. And the formula is a one-year action learning program, including 3 key elements. That is the training at top academic partners, namely the School of Oriental and African Studies in London, Waseda University in Tokyo, and Yonsei University in Seoul. There's also an internship element with a local company, and a scholarship provided by the European Union. So that's part of the funding aspect from the European Commission. So why should you choose the Executive Training Program? Why would it be of interest to EU managers? Well, Japan and Korea, as I'll go on to explain in the next slide, offer great and mainly untapped business opportunities for European companies and European executives. The program over the last 35 years in Japan and 11 years in Korea has been successful. It's helped more than 1,100 European managers from many different sectors, over 20 different sectors of the economy, to complete the program and to develop their activities in these markets. And in terms of results, we see significant impacts both for the executives, for the managers, and for their sponsoring companies. 65% of ETP alumni go on to become top executives within their companies. And for the companies themselves, we see that their related turnover in Japan and Korea increases by 2-fold over the 10 years after their managers have participated in the program. So why is the European Union targeting Japan and South Korea as markets of interest to European executives and companies? Well, Japan is currently the EU's 7th largest trading partner in the world, and the EU's 2nd biggest trading partner in Asia. The EU is currently negotiating a free trade agreement with Japan, and it's estimated that on its conclusion this could deliver an increase of 32.7% in EU exports to Japan. South Korea is currently the EU's 10th largest trade partner, and in South Korea there is already an EU-Korea free trade agreement in place. This entered into force in July 2011. So here there's some experience to show that the free trade agreement can really help exports grow strongly, and in Korea it's given the EU a trade surplus for the first time in the last 15 years. So ETP is there to help strengthen the presence of EU managers in Japan and Korea, but it also gives them cultural, or it strengthens the cultural and business links which already exist between these countries and the European Union member states. So how does ETP work? So as mentioned before, it's a one-year action learning program. It begins with 3 weeks training in Europe at the School of Oriental and African Studies, or SOAS for short, at the University of London. And this period is focused mainly on the history, the business, culture, and modern society of Japan and Korea. This is then followed by 42 weeks of immersion in Japan and Korea. So this period begins, the main part, the program starts in November. The immersion module starts in January and lasts for 42 weeks. This is mainly training at Waseda University in Tokyo or Yonsei University in Seoul from January through to the summer, followed by an internship with a local company, with graduation then being a year later in November. And in Japan and Korea, as Professor Pak will explain in more detail during his presentation, the course is split across between language, which is about 60% of the course, and the business, which is the remaining 40%. And alongside this training element, in both countries there are a range of networking and social activities to help participating executives and managers to get to know business contacts and the country and the business culture in more detail. So what are the benefits of participation? What can you expect if you apply and if you're successful in your application to take part? ETP helps managers gain unique and valuable skills through the Action Learning Program, which are relevant to the Japanese and Korean markets. It helps them to broaden their network of business contacts in both countries via the program, via the learning itself, but particularly, of course, via the internship, which takes place in the local company during the summer of the course. So that's on the executive side. On the business side, as mentioned, there are also clear benefits, and there's a lasting business impact for participating companies through the business plans which participants develop as part of the course during their time, particularly in Japan and Korea. A key benefit, of course, is that, as mentioned before, the executive training program is funded by the European Union. It funds the whole training course, and it provides a scholarship to back that up of 26,400 euros for the year in Japan and 24,000 euros for the year in Korea. So this means that it's a very cost-effective way of learning about these markets compared to similar courses which may be available without EU support. So just to give you a breakdown, that works out roughly at 2,200 euros per month for Japan and 2,000 euros per month for Korea. So if you're interested in the executive training program, how do you apply? How do you pursue that interest? The best place to look to start with is on our website if you haven't already. That's www.euetp.eu. There are two streams. If you're on one hand an interested EU executive or manager, or if you're an interested EU company. On the website, you're able to check the minimum requirements, both for executives and for companies to take part in the program. There you can also fill out an expression of interest. For the executive, you should think about getting the sponsorship of your company. It's important to have that backing and to be able to maintain the link throughout your participation in the program so that you develop the business plan for your company and are able to bring that back to Europe at the end. If you're an interested company, you should be able to try and identify the right candidate who would be taking part in the program on behalf of your business. In both cases, we have local contacts, and I'll give you their details in the next slide, who will be able to guide you through the application process, help check your eligibility, and coach you to hopefully fill a successful application for the program. In terms of the minimum requirements, just to give you a brief overview, for EU executives, they should be a citizen of one of the member states of the EU, should be employed by their sponsoring company for at least 1 year, and be able to communicate well in English. And then there's certain educational requirements around having a degree, a BA level degree, and 3 years professional experience, or 2 years of higher education and 5 years of professional experience as an executive. Then on the company side, companies should have exports or investments in Japan or Korea, or have a plan to develop that exports or investments in one of the countries. They should be EU-based and EU-owned, so have their global headquarters in the EU, and have a European identity. There are also certain requirements around the size of the company. It should employ a minimum of 5 people and have an annual turnover of 500,000 euros or more. But please don't hesitate to check these eligibility criteria in more detail on the website, or to contact your coach should you have any specific questions. So where can you get more information about the executive training program? As mentioned, we have our website. We have a general email address, info@etp.eu, and an info line for more information. We also have a wide coverage on social media, so on the LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook platforms, where you can find out more about our current activities and see more about the current cycle of ETP in particular, and what the participants are doing in Japan and Korea right now. But if you have specific questions, I'd certainly encourage you to get in contact with your local contacts. We work on a cluster basis of geographical groups of countries. So you'll see on your screen, on the slide, a list of countries. If your company is based in these, your local contact will either be in Brussels, at the Brussels office, in Hamburg, London, Madrid, or Warsaw. And colleagues will be there available via those email addresses to help you and answer any questions that you may have. Okay, we're now going to move on to the next part of the presentation, which is an intervention from Professor Pak from the University of Yonsei in Seoul in South Korea. He will give you a brief overview into the immersion module, some more details about what you can expect from that part of the course, and what is happening in Korea at the moment. So Professor Pak, I hand over to you.
Okay, thank you. So from now on, I'm going to talk about immersion model of ETP in Korea. And we've been involved with ETP since 2007. Okay, and next I'm going to talk about briefly about Yonsei University, where you will join us for about a year to learn the Korean language and to learn the Korean business and management. Yonsei is the oldest and best, the first and the best university, private university in Korea. It was established in 1885 and located at the heart of city and culture and education. It's one of the green campuses in Seoul. Okay, in terms of academic units, we have 95 departments in 22 colleges, and we have many graduate programs, and we have about 155 research institutes, and we have 3 campuses, Sincheon and Cheongdo and Wonju, but ETP will be held at Sincheon. So total number of students, we have about 28,000 students, including undergraduate and graduate students, so it's a very large university. And we have also about 5,000 international students each year. Faculty, we have full-time, part-time, including full-time, part-time, we have a total of 3,589 faculty members, and also we have about 153 international faculty members. So far I briefly explained about the Yonsei University. Now I will explain about the major contents of ETP immersion model at Yonsei. So we start with introductory Korean language training. We offer classes 5 hours a day for 6 weeks. And it's Monday through Friday. And so for the first 6 weeks, basically, you will learn the Korean language. A total of 150 hours will be spent on this introductory Korean language training. And individually, you will have a separate individual lessons for about 30 hours. So after 6 weeks of introductory Korean language, when you will only learn during the weekdays about Korean language, after 6 weeks, then you will start with intensive Korean language training. In this case, you will attend 4 times a week, and each time you will spend about 4 hours for 24 weeks. So a total of 300 hours will be spent on learning Korean. So at the end of the program, we expect that all participants will pass level 2 of Korean language level test. Okay, so after 6 weeks of introductory Korean language, while you are taking intensive Korean language training in the morning, in the afternoon you will take business and management training. And there will be, these courses will be developed, will be offered in Sangnam Institute of Management, and you will take courses for 24 weeks. And classes are offered 3 hours per scheduled day. So basically Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. In the afternoon, after 4 hours of Korean language in the morning, you will take business and management training courses. There will be 8 core courses: business culture and behavior of Korean companies, government and public institutions in Korea, Korean negotiation strategies in the global era, HRM, human resource management in Korea, entry strategies into the Korean market, financial management and accounting in Korea, marketing B2B in Korea, and strategic management in Korea. Those will be 8 core courses. And then you will select 5 out of 7 elective courses, which will include Korean business law, marketing B2C in Korea, IT in Korea, operation management and distribution strategy of Korean firms, how to develop a business plan, leadership in Korea, practical management in Korea, and Wednesday seminar. And then also during the Wednesdays, you have about 30 hours of Wednesday seminar, and we will have guest speakers for that seminar. And also, while you are here, while you are at Yonsei, you have to complete business plan, field study, and research. Okay, so after you finish the introductory Korean language in the first 6 weeks and intensive Korean language training at the same time, business and management training for 24 weeks, and then probably at the end of July, you will start internship. Internship will last about 3 months, so a 12-week internship in a Korean company will be started, and then it gives the participants the first-hand experience of Korean firms' business culture and decision-making process, and you will have a chance to mingle with Korean staffs. So it will be a valuable time for you to personally experience the Korean business practices. And during the whole period of ETP immersion module, you will have business networking and social activities. So there will be 8 to 10 company visits and various business networking events and cultural and social activities. Okay, If I briefly explain about the business opportunities for European companies in Korea, I mean, if you think about Korea in 1960s, Korea's GDP per capita was very low and was one of the first country in Africa or Asia. But currently, Korea is world's 15th largest economy, and it now has an open economy to the global business partners. So we have Korea, Chile, Korea, Singapore, Korea, EFTA, Korea, ASEAN, Korea, India, Korea, EU, Korea, Peru, Korea, US free trade agreement. So basically, Korea is a very open economy, having so many FTAs with all these countries, and we have also free trade zone. And between Korea and EU, we are the 10th largest trading partner, and Korea being EU's 4th largest export destination after China, Japan, and the US. Okay, so I mean, Korea is, people don't perceive it as developed economies, but it's not also emerging economies because it's not growing over 5% each year. But if it's been regarded as kind of developing or close to developed economies, Korea has been doing relatively well compared to other European developed economies, because we've been growing 6% in 2010, and we've been growing 3.6%, 2.0% in 2012, and last year we grew 2.8%. So still we are growing, so we're performing a little bit better than the stagnant developed economies, and we are having exports and business relationships mainly with China and US, and also Germany and France being our major business partners for exports and imports. Okay, and then I didn't include in the slide, but Korea is very strong in terms of industry-wise. Korea has very strong industries in electronics, household electronics, including handphone set, and we are very strong. We have 5th largest automakers, Hyundai, Kia, and we are the worldwide leading industry in shipbuilding. So we are #1 in shipbuilding, and also we are very strong in IT industry sector. So if your industries are related to all these household electronics and automobile and shipbuilding and IT, Korea is a good destination for you to have or develop business relationships. Okay, so that's I mean about all for me to present, and I think I will hand over the session to Paul. Okay. Result.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Professor Pak, for your presentation. I think it's very helpful to understand a bit more what the immersion module entails and some of the business opportunities currently in Korea. Of course, Professor Pak is busy at the moment with the current cycle of participants who started the immersion module in January 2014. So we'll be more or less at the end of their first 6 weeks of introductory Korean language training, and entering the main language training and the business courses as well. So thank you for your presentation. As you say, we'll now move on to the testimonial from Zsolt Váradi, who participated, as mentioned before, in ETP Korea 7, as we call it. That's from the year 2012 to 2013, and is now working as a business development manager for ETP Group back in Hungary. So Zsolt, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Dr. Pak. As Mr. Davis said, I am Zsolt Váradi from Hungary, and I am a business development manager at ETP Group. I have worked at Evoprogo for 6 years. We had some project already which related to Korea or Korean companies before we applied to ETP, but our company has decided to apply for ETP because we think there are still a lot of business opportunities, and not only in Korea, because Korean companies have a lot of activities in other Asian countries too. We see a lot of possibility to work in other country in Asia with a Korean partner company. So what we need to discover these opportunities. That's why we applied to ETP. Okay, now I would like to say a few words about the training at Yonsei University. I finished the ETP 3 months ago, so I still have fresh memories about the program. I started ETP without any knowledge of the Korean language, and even though I still don't speak Korean fluently, I can have basic conversation and write emails in Korean, which I consider very important. I am sure in that without ETP, I couldn't have achieved this level of Korean language. But it was not easy. Sometimes it was very difficult to find a balance between studying and networking. Especially at the beginning when I moved to Korea and faced indeed a fair share of challenges. The language, the intense schedule of Korean classes, business classes, we had a lot of homework from one day to another. We had to do networking, finding internship, discovering the country. There were so many things at the same time. So because of this, we can say that ETP is a full-time job. If you start the training like me, not knowing a word in Korean, you have to practice a lot. Take every opportunity to speak Korean, because the language is the most challenging part of the training. The Korean teaching method differs greatly from the European approach, but even if you fear that things go too fast, please never complain to the teacher, just accept it and try to practice outside of the school. Make an effort to have a Korean friends from the beginning. Install the Kakao Talk on your mobile and speak as much Korean as possible. It's usually not difficult, as the Koreans always look for somebody to speak English, French, Spanish, or any other language, and in return you can practice Korean too. Yonsei University also supports you if you want to find Korean language exchange student. After the first 6 weeks, the afternoon business class will start. The knowledge of the Korean business culture is very important too. All the lectures are very interesting, and little by little it will bring you closer to understand the Korean business culture. Later on, if you have a dinner with some Korean businessmen and they bring up POSCO or GAPCO or other big Korean company that you maybe have never heard before, you can be confident and have conversation about these companies as you have learned about them at the university. And I'm sure they will be happy to see how much knowledge you have about their culture and how interested you are. And if you are speaking a little Korean, then they will really appreciate it, and it will be easier to expand your business network and build a trustworthy relationship, which is essential in the Korean business world. In the last module, you will get the opportunity to have an insight into how a Korean company works during the internship module. At this point, you will realize why it is so important to be a Yonsei student. If two Korean companies want to do business with each other, the first question the bosses discuss is where they graduated. If they graduated in the same school, it means that they can build a relationship on trust without really knowing each other. in Korea, verbal agreement is as important as documented one in Europe. Let me show you with a recent example how much the ETP has helped me. We wanted to make a contract with one of the suppliers of one of the biggest Korean company in Hungary. In reality, if a big Korean company, for example Samsung, LG, Hyundai or Hankook Tire, invest abroad and build a factory, then they will bring all the Korean SME suppliers as well. It means that the Korea SME will be the first level supplier and other companies only stand a chance as a second level. The same thing happened to our company too. During the negotiation, we had to give quotation for some special sensor and they recommended a smaller Korean company in Hungary. I mean, one of the Korean supplier recommend this other Korean company. When I heard the name, the company name, I realized I know the owner of the Korean mother company because I had met him in Seoul at the Hungarian embassy. When I got in contact with the manager of the Hungarian office of this Korean company, he already know about me. So it was more easier to negotiate with him because he heard a lot of story about me because I keep the contact with the owner of the mother company. Of course, this was not only the reason why we won the project, but this was the kind of advantage that we wouldn't have had without ETP. And my boss told me it was worth applying for ETP already. So I strongly recommend that you go to your country's embassy, even during, you go to your country's embassy events during the program because you get the chance to meet those Korean directors, managers who have business in your country. And not, of course, not only to these events, because Dr. Pak always said to us, go out, meet people, have dinner with them, because you can do it while you are in Seoul. If you go back to your country, it will be more than difficult to meet even for a dinner. And this is true. The Korean businessmen really like to meet personally, have a dinner together, have a lunch together. This is the chance that ETP gives us. Beside the knowledge of the Korean language and the business culture, you will be there and you will have the possibility to meet. This is very important. I am sure Dr. Pak will explain the Korean etiquette as he explained it to us too. The dining etiquette, the greeting and the meeting etiquette, because it's quite different from the European protocol. The Korean people will like it if you pay attention of these things too. For example, how you fill the glasses at dinner, because it's quite another way how they do it. During the dinner, as Mr. Philip Harder mentioned his experience in Japan at the previous webinar, in Korea is the same. You don't have to like all of the food they offer, but just be polite and try it at least once. If you don't like it, just say, oh, okay, I prefer the other one, and just don't be rude. To sum up, ETP gives a real one-year package of Korean life, but this year doesn't mean that you will be a Korean specialist, and it doesn't guarantee that you will do business for sure. You need more time to develop your network, keep in touch with your contacts, and keep on learning the language. It's also very important. I'm learning in Hungary as well, in Korea. ETP is perfect to make the start but to start to expand your business to Korea or Japan, and it has really given us a unique and valuable experience. If your company is interested in the Korean or Japanese market, I suggest that you apply to ETP. So that is all from me. If there are any questions during the Q&A, I am happy to answer. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, Joel, thank you very much for your testimonial. It's very helpful to get such recent and relevant experience and insights into your participation in ETP in Korea. Certainly great to get those concrete tips and advice on how to make the most of the experience. So we're now moving on to the question and answer session. So I will take a few of these, and if we have others, please don't hesitate to input them in your box on your screen. We'll try and address them one by one. So one of the first questions is around the living costs in Japan specifically, but I guess this also applies to Korea as well. What they would be on a monthly basis, or how much you could expect. Of course, it's very difficult to generalize for each country, because it depends very much on the type of accommodation, for example, which is taken out, and how far away that is from the university, what travel expenses are needed, and so on. But what I could say is that generally the scholarships, I think, are quite generous. They certainly will go a long way to covering the monthly expenses which are necessary. But what we do is encourage participating companies to also consider supporting their managers and executives financially to participate in the program. So, for example, central accommodation is, of course, more expensive than accommodation further out. If this is chosen, it would be necessary probably to have a supplement above and beyond what is provided by the program to help fund that and to help fund the monthly living costs. Zsolt, perhaps you have some insights there on the living expenses in Korea?
Yes. I will tell you the price in Korean won, because now I cannot change it to euros. For example, I was living in a one room. It means I think it's a normal living place. I think all of the ETP participants has chosen almost the same size of the apartment. It was 25 square meters and was really close to the Yonsei University. In one, the monthly fee was 800,000 won, and the maintenance and every other additional cost, it was 300,000 costs. So summarized, it was 1,100,000 Korean won. And the traveling is not, even though you cannot buy a monthly ticket, you have to pay every time when you use any kind of public transportation. But it's quite cheap. It's around 1,000 won per one travel. It's not very expensive, and the taxi fee is very, very low in Korea, so we use several times the taxi. And from the scholarship, you can cover, I'm sure you can cover all of the accommodation, the basic things. Of course, if you want to go out for networking events, yeah, but you need to get support from your company.
Indeed, thank you. So, sorry, please go ahead.
Sorry. For the basic living condition, I think you can cover from the scholarship.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I think that helps certainly to answer that question, that the scholarship goes a long way, but depending on the living situation, it's advantageous to get help from the sponsoring company as well. We had a question around the language which is used for the training. So clearly one of the aims, as Professor Pak explained, is to really develop and enhance the participants' knowledge, in this case of Korean, but in Tokyo of the Japanese language. But the training for the business element takes place in English, so that's why that's one of the key eligibility criteria, that all participants should be able to communicate well in the English language. There's a question we've received now on the internship element, so that takes place during the summer of the course, and whether participants can choose their company. Certainly that's the case. Participants are encouraged to do so, and it is in fact their responsibility to set that internship up. But that said, they're given full support and guidance by the education providers, so by Waseda and Yonsei, to help identify local companies which may be willing to host them during the internship element. And over the last 35 years in Japan and 11 in Korea, there's an established network of companies which are interested in hosting the European managers in their companies during the internship element. So there'll be full advice and guidance given after selection and during participation in the course to help participants identify and find an internship company. We have some questions from different participants on the selection process. So the deadline for applications for the next cycle is the 15th of May this year, 15th of May 2014. If you're considering applying, we'd certainly encourage you to try and do so as far in advance of the deadline as possible. In that way, your local cluster coordinator, your coach, can help you to develop your application so that it stands as good a chance as possible of being successful. The selection itself is a competitive process in that all of the applications which we receive are reviewed and ranked. And then those which are ranked towards the higher end are invited to an assessment center in Brussels, which takes place over the summer in June. And at this assessment center, there are two tests which need to be taken, an abstract reasoning test and one specific to ETP, and an interview with the European Union representative, the representatives from the European Commission, and other representatives who will help make the selection. Then the results come out quite soon afterwards, so participants can prepare their participation in November 2014, which is when the next cycle starts. So that's a brief overview of the selection process, and further details, the full process can be found on the website. If you click on the Apply Now button, there's an overview of the whole process there. In terms of the numbers, someone has asked how many people participate in ETP. The ETP in Japan caters for up to 45 participants per year, and in Korea up to 15. So the aim from those who apply is to enable 45 and 15 to go to Japan and Korea respectively, starting in November this year. We also have one question about whether it's possible to participate on a part-time basis. Unfortunately, that's not possible. As you'll have heard during today's webinar from both Professor Pak and from Zsolt as well, clearly it's a full-time commitment, the majority being the immersion module in Japan or Korea, which requires participants to be there, to be present on a full-time basis, to dedicate themselves to the language business studies, and then to the internship during the summer as well. Okay, there are a number of other questions. I'm just briefly scanning them. It won't be possible probably to take all of them during this webinar, but the team will be available afterwards. We'll send the slides and contact details so you can get in touch if you have specific questions. Maybe one again for you, Zsolt, around the visa requirements to work in Korea. Did you have to apply for a visa to take part in the program?
Yes, I have to apply for visa. I don't remember exactly now, but it was a visa for the students with 1 year. I remember it was a D4 visa for this training program. But before apply for a visa, I know Miss Sylvia Young from the Yonsei University. She is the assistant for Dr. Pak. She will help you what kind of visa to apply.
Yeah, indeed. So thank you. And I think it's a similar situation in Japan. There are visa requirements, but the program in general and the colleagues in Japan and Korea specifically are able to guide those who are selected through the visa process and explain in detail what needs to be done and the deadlines to make sure everything's in place before they go to Japan and Korea. We have another question about the accommodation, whether it's up to participants to find this and what assistance and help is given. So similarly to the internship, it is indeed up to the individual participants to find their accommodation. But again, there's a range of guidance and help provided by the program and provided by the education providers in Japan and Korea, particularly giving hints and tips on where people have stayed before, what are the different options and opportunities, and helping participants to decide what best suits their individual circumstances. So that's part of the package to help and assist with that process. We've had one question about whether the number of positions per European country vary or whether there's a quota system in place. There's not. Applications are open to any participants from the European Union from across the different member states. And then, as I mentioned, it's a competitive selection process based on the strength of the individual applications rather than the country or indeed the sector in which the individuals are working. There's one other question we've had about whether you can apply for ETP in Korea and Japan. That's possible in the first instance, certainly. We have the option to apply or express an interest in both programs. But what your coach will then do is work together with you to refine your application and direct it probably towards one market or the other. Clearly, it's not possible to go for both ultimately, so they will help to coach you and develop it with you to see what your interests, where your interests really lie, so that the application can be as focused and targeted as possible, and thereby give you the strongest chance of being selected. There's a question about age and what a typical participant would look like. It's quite flexible, certainly, but what we normally see is that the participants are in, let's say, late 20s or 30s. They already, according to the eligibility criteria, have a record of some achievement in business and can clearly demonstrate that they see Japan or Korea as a challenge either for themselves or also for their companies. So there's no specific age criteria, but the typical profile is, let's say, around 30, a little bit more, although we certainly have had people above that age to participate in the program as well. Okay, I'm just briefly scanning. We still have a number of questions to answer, so I'll try and take a couple more of those. This is maybe a question which goes a little bit further beyond the executive training program, but nevertheless is interesting for people to know. And perhaps this is a question for both for Professor Pak and for Zsolt, as one of the participants here is interested in the sort of business culture and how long it takes to work with Japanese and Korean companies, and how long you could expect the business relationship to be in place before things really develop. I don't know, Zsolt, or perhaps Professor Pak, whether you could comment on perhaps some of the differences you see between the business culture in Japan and Korea and Europe. Professor Pak, maybe?
Yeah, well, now Korea economies also has been globalized, and they tend to develop business relationship through documentation and official meeting. But as Zsolt explained, it will only help you if you have some kind of business networks or personal relationships or personal background with the company. So when you approach the company officially, it may be hard to go through. They want to have some references. So in that case, we will try to help you in setting up appointments, and then when you go there, you can explain yourself as an ETP participant sponsored by EC and having the education at Yonsei, and those supporting activities will help you to have a better or personal relationship with the company, and that I think will help you to have more easier business relationship with the Korean company. So can you explain further?
Yes, in my experience is that if you already did one time a business with that Korean company, after you can plan to work together later on, because as we see, if for example other company offer a lower price for this project, for example, lower price that you offer, then the Korean company will stay choose you to work with, because it's very important to create the relationship, the trust, and if there is already exist, it's more then the Korean company will choose you, because they know you, they know your company, your working method, and it's very important for them, and they will don't choose another company only because they have a lower price. So it's usually if you started to work with a Korean company, after they will find you always and try to work together once more, and once more if they have opportunity to work together.
Okay, very good. Thanks for your input there, both. I think that's useful to help understand. We're approaching the end of the webinar now, but just take a final few questions which have been raised. One was about whether having prior experience working or active in Korea or Japan is helpful in the application process. Certainly it is. One of the main elements of the application is to demonstrate a concrete interest both for your company and for your career in these markets. So prior experience is certainly relevant and should be emphasized in your application. But also explain how it's relevant to your future aspirations and plans after taking part in the program itself. So that's certainly something which, if you have that experience, we'd encourage you to stress in your application, and that's something which your coach will help you to do during the process. There's one question here about people who have already some language knowledge. So Zsolt mentioned that he didn't. He was new to the Korean language when he started the course. But some of our participants do already have at least basic knowledge of Japanese and Korean. And we try and cater as far as possible for the different levels which may be within our participant groups. So there is some streaming of the participants when they're at Yonsei and Waseda to take account of this. So those who are already further advanced can start at a higher level than those who are pure beginners. There's also a question about getting in touch with your embassies and the opportunities for networking. Zsolt, I think you also mentioned this during your presentation, that you encourage participants to reach out to their diplomatic representations for business contacts. Maybe you could just say a final word on that.
Yes, as I mentioned in my session, it's it's a good thing to go and keep the contact with your embassy, because if there is any event, then I am sure the Korean businessman who has business in your country will join and come, and you can meet with them, and then they also interested in you because you came from that country that they are doing business, and if you speak Korean, I think it's easier to make the make the relationship or keep in touch or something. So I recommend you to attend on your embassy events.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, certainly encouraged and Shusei recommended that participants should be in touch with their diplomatic representations, their embassies, to help gain contacts in Japan and Korea. Okay, so we're very near the end. A couple of final questions. One, a participant has asked if it's possible to visit Waseda or Yonsei to meet the present ETP students, I guess to gain an insight from that into what the program looks like. I'm sure that would be possible. We'd encourage you then to submit that request probably via your local contact here in Europe, and we'll put you in touch with the universities there to see if there's an opportunity to do so. Otherwise, a final question asked whether we will circulate the slides. We will certainly do so after this webinar. We'll send them to all of the participants, and also the slides and a recording of this webinar will be on our website very soon. So if you missed anything or would like to refer back to it, you can do so via the website in the coming days. So it's nearly 10:30 here in Brussels, so time for us to wrap up and just finally say thank you to Professor Pak and to Zsolt for their participation and their insights. I think that was very useful for all of us to get the first-hand experience of life, in this case in Korea, but also to be able to interpret that for Japan as well. Thank you to everyone for participating. As mentioned, the deadline is 15th of May to participate in the next cycle starting in November 2014. Please don't hesitate to visit our website and contact any other member of the team with questions you may have. We'll be happy to help. Okay, so thank you very much for your participation. Have a good day, and we hope to hear from you all soon. Goodbye.